Our sun is dying. Mankind faces extinction. 7 years ago, the Icarus Project sent a mission to restart the sun. But that mission was lost before it reached the star.
On a previous episode during our Zombie Night Extravaganza theme month, we explored Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's first collaboration, 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later is debated on whether it's technically a zombie film, as Alex Garland was inspired by 1970s zombie films, as well as The Day of the Triffids, while Danny Boyle doesn't view it as a zombie film at all. Boyle and Garland create the rage virus that within seconds turns a healthy human into an enraged animal that tries to quickly attack and destroy the uninfected. Humans are infected through blood and saliva, not necessarily bitten. This 2002 film is credited with reinvigorating the zombie genre, which had hit a bit of a dry spell in the last few years, and creating an early version of the fast zombies that would power through many zombie films in the 2000s. Tonight we're talking about Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's next collaboration, Sunshine, which also stars Cillian Murphy, along with a truly impressive list of recent actors: Michelle Yeoh, Chris Evans, Rose Byrne, Cliff Curtis, Benedict Wong, Hiroyuki Sanada. Sunshine sees Cillian Murphy as, shockingly, an American astrophysicist named Robert, who has designed an impressively large bomb that's never truly been tested. But this bomb is meant to be dropped from a spacecraft into the sun, which has been suddenly dying, meaning the Earth will soon die too. The bomb is theoretically meant to reignite the sun by blowing apart a cue ball particle that's eating the sun from the inside out. The first mission, 7 years earlier, the Icarus 1, the second mission, of course, is the Icarus 2. Cursed names for a journey to the sun, I must say. Fell out of communication and never responded again. It was assumed that everyone on the Icarus 1 died. The second mission scraped together all the materials to build a bomb left on Earth, meaning it's Earth's last chance. Also invoking early ideas about climate change and the theory of the God particle. Big things were happening in the world of science in 2007.
And the story is usually that there's a signal from space and the crew change course because of it. And if you think through your favorite sci-fi films, serious ones, not the fantasy ones, they all have that plot device in them. And it's because we've not been there and we don't have any stories about them. Or we do, but they're fantastical because they're made up.
Sunshine is inspired by the big names in what Danny Boyle calls serious science fiction. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Solaris, Ridley Scott's Alien, as well as John Carpenter's Dark Star.
Go. Captain, return to airlock. You copy? Captain, return to airlock. You copy?
Elements of these films are included in Sunshine, and similarly to these films, the big questions are tackled about the mission versus the individual's life, whether a computer system can be trusted, whether there's some type of creator in the universe, and whether we're playing God by trying to save ourselves when the universe clearly means to render us extinct. The big questions engulf this film like the total light of the sun. Alex Garland and Danny Boyle brought a physicist named Brian Cox, who was in the process of working on CERN's Large Hadron Collider, to help with the science of Sunshine, despite the drop a bomb on the sun thing being a scientifically shaky premise, to say the least. Cillian Murphy was brought to visit CERN during the making of the film, and he ended up getting drunk with Brian Cox, chatting about the universe.
And so he enjoyed focusing on that. But also, Cillian is a very easy person to get on with, and we got on very well. So we had quite a few sort of long alcohol-fueled nights discussing the issues brought up by the script.
Sunshine definitely hits the familiar notes, from constant equipment malfunctions to the need to manually go outside and fix the ship. The psychological toll that being stuck in a tiny ship has on individual psychology, endless vast area of deep space used to affect awe and horror, as well as man's ultimate reliance on technology for survival. Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, co-writing this film, both have a deep understanding of suspense and drama. Ultimately, that's what sells the more intense moments out in deep space, and a lot could be forgiven if it's solidly timed. The technology and visual effects in Sunshine have been praised. The Kenny suit, a pretty funny South Park reference, was designed to deflect the radiation and the heat using gold leaf and modeled on NASA technology. NASA also inspired one of the coolest devices in the film, the oxygen garden, that allows astronauts to create their own oxygen and food. The whole film is a pretty cool light show using light both literally and metaphorically, with religious reference to dust in the face of God. The film was decently received by critics, but didn't make as much money as the studio hoped. It was yet another notch in the belt for Alex Garland, who was not yet a director, but as a writer who was developing a reputation for bold, scientifically based, interesting projects. Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/movie night extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. We also have a new Discord and a Letterboxd HQ account, so those are two more places to follow along with us. Links are in the description. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Jay Underworld, illustrator, book cover artist, artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Kristina Oakes is streaming on Twitch at Cosmopolitics, twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics. Also recently joined YouTube, she's on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Cosmopolitics. Send her some subs on Twitch, and send her a coffee. Becky Rice is part of the year-round staff at the Seattle International Film Festival, where she was just house manager for their 50th anniversary celebration. She's also currently on Letterboxd at It's Becky KR. I, of course, am your host, and the computer system that isn't listening to you, Forrest Miller. For 7 years, I spoke with God. He told me to take us all to heaven.
Careful, Icarus.
That is some name if you stop and think about what they're doing, right?
Yeah. Also, that's a classic Craig Ferguson reference.
Wow, there you
Well,
go.
so Alex Garland said that the reason that he named it Icarus in the script is because he thought it was very funny that an American, like every American spaceship is called something like Hope or like, you know, like something that's like very positive.
Mhm.
They would never actually call a mission to the sun Icarus. So he was like, oh, they've given up hope so much at this point that they're just naming it like, you know, negative joke names pretty much.
And then they're like, first one gets lost, like Icarus 2, whatever, launch the damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with the story of Icarus, it kind of has like almost like they kind of knew what they were doing by naming it that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you know, they really do fly too close to the sun.
I mean, it is very close to the sun, yes. Becky Rice, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I would like to point out that if nobody has noticed that I actually have an Icarus tattoo.
Oh,
That's who this guy is.
Let's solo that once again.
Yeah, that's
with
me.
the production. There it is. Look at you.
Yep.
So,
Well, he's not flying
Yeah.
that. Is that like that's Icarus? I guess before he
what are you
did
talking
the
about?
big
That's
thing
the
with Conan.
the sun is
right
like
there.
above the
Sun.
wing. What are you talking about?
I know.
He's
but
so
I meant like
close.
it's like. All right. Well, it's a tiny
He's on
sun.
his
Maybe
way.
it's the sun from Sunshine, and it's like, oh no, it's
Yes.
fizzling out.
Yeah, it's only 5%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know, he really that guy was real into seeing the total light. He's just talking to all his like friends about it. He's like, and then if it's total light, it totally envelops you. And they're like, bro, you're the psychiatrist. Who do we go to when we're having
It's his passion, really. Just like graphic design is some other people's.
And then if you fly right into the sun, guy, I'm trying to tell you about my problems right now. Like, I don't need to hear about total light again.
I think that Andy, I think you're mute. I think you're mute. That's boy.
I think you.
I'm good with the English. I think.
Yeah, you're still muted.
Nope. Still. Yeah, no dice. We'll come back to what Andy's got to say. I saw this. I did not see this in the theater. I saw it like the second I did home video because I was such a 28 Days Later fan, which we talked about when we did that episode. Like, I was basically like, anything Boyle does is great, which led to some interesting, not bad film going experiences down the line. I thought Millions was a very sweet movie. To say that it wasn't what I expected was like. Like a while, because I went into it without seeing anything about it, and I was like, "Oh, this is just like a sweet little boy and his little Christmas wish," and okay, right on. And there's also money laundering.
It's train spotting for children. It is not a sweet movie. It whipped ass. It's so good.
I ended up liking it, but you have to understand, I was like, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, this is gonna be Mr. 28 Days Later. This is gonna be," and I was like, "Oh, this is." Like, if I had known this was going to be like kind of like low key, like fairy tale kind of stuff, then like I probably would have. Yeah. I saw it again later, and I was like, oh, I actually really like this. I took it in the spirit of what it was, right? Whereas I feel like with Sunshine, everyone's like, oh, it's on. It's Alice Garland and Danny Boyle. They're in space. Watch out! And it's like, it was such. So first of all, space, fucking space. It's a bummer to be in space, right? Usually it is a bummer. If you're not in Star Trek, it's usually a bummer to be in space. Usually terrible things happen. There's nothing you can do about them. It's generally somebody has to go outside the ship to fix something. That's a classic thing, right?
Space.
I think the bleak mood on this absolutely totally works, though. But it's also one of the reasons why it was not a huge box office success, because people were like, oh, that was a drag. Like, that was like a major drag.
We need a feel-good movie about being lost in space for once.
Lost in space. We had that, and that was terrible.
You find the cool people, and they're like, "Hey, bro, we found you flying through space, and we just thought maybe you need a ride. Thanks for putting your thumb up and being a hitchhiker."
Well, actually, kind of weird that Dark Star was on the. I'm sorry, Becky. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, no, I just found it weird that Dark Star was on the list of movies that influenced this, because Dark Star is is a bit of a downer, but it's also like funny at the same time. Because like, at the end, sorry to ruin the movie, but the spaceship blows up and the only survivor surfs back to Earth.
Well, the pinbacker thing is a direct Dark Star reference. Like, that's what they were referencing.
Well, yeah, it's okay to spoil a movie made in 1974, I think, at this point. Like, I think that,
especially when a lot of people probably
the embargo has been lifted. Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, no, the point is that like it is totally very different than the rest of the films on the list, which are very, quote unquote serious sci-fi.
Is that John Carpenter's first movie, or it's one of his early?
One
movies?
of his first.
Very early.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Keanu Bannon is starring in it. The guy who wrote Alien.
Oh right, yeah, and Keanu Bannon, who's usually anything he's associated with is worth paying attention to.
I can't remember what movie. I can't remember what movie we were covering when I grabbed the Dan O'Bannon clip from Dark Star, and I put it
probably
in
Return of the Living Dead.
I was thinking.
Yeah. There we go. All right.
But
I'm glad we sorted that out.
Danny Boyle, the trajectory of movies he's like directed. I mean, he's directed a bunch, but like it's so interesting. Like, it's just so all over the place. Like Trainspotting, obviously, and then Millions, and then Sunshine, but then also Slumdog Millionaire. 100.
Which won an Oscar, right? Didn't that win an Oscar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also 127 hours.
Years later, just finished wrapping up too.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
actually, 127 hours, which is the movie where James Franco has his arm, he's pinned into the rocks.
Danny Boyle's the king of. I did not know he directed that.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then Steve.
Well, because he doesn't have a genre that he works in. He isn't like a John Carpenter or whatever.
Well, so he did the. So he did the Aaron.
Because the genre.
Yeah.
The genre piece with a lot of Danny Boyle's films comes from the writer, not from like him as a director. He doesn't write and direct. And so That's why there's such like a stark difference between the films that he makes with Alex Garland versus the films that he makes without him. But like if you look at like the camera work, the lighting style, the way that actors move and engage like with each other and with like the scenery, they are all incredibly consistent from one film to the next within like Danny Boyle's work. The difference with like these 3 films, soon to be 4, is the Alex Garland piece of it. And I think that like Sunshine specifically for me, I think is like the perfect like blend of them two working and writing together, because like 28 Days Later is like very heavily like a Danny thing, right? Like it's not as bleak. There are these like little moments of like hope in it, you know. But the camera style is like very like transgressive, like filmmaking, especially like for the time. Very avant-garde. Like I mean, like they were literally shutting down actual streets in London in order to like film some of those shots at like 4 a.m. And then the beach, on the flip side of that, feels very much like an Alex Garland thing, which like, I mean, it wasn't, he didn't write it for the movie. He had already written it, and then they decided to like make it into a movie together.
He apparently had very little to do with the actual making of it, because he's been asked a million times, like, oh, did the jump from the beach, help you get into writing movies? He's like, oh no, I wasn't even like on set for any of that. Like,
no, he's like, I wrote The Beach, and then Danny made it into a movie. Like.
And we talked about it on that 28 Days Later episode, right? But like he was disappointed, Boyle, with being in the system and like sort of like like not being able to get results. He's wanted to make stuff, so used the crudest digital video camera it could find. Apparently, filmed on a smart calculator and made a badass movie that changed I know they're not zombies, but it changed like the zombie movie genre more or less for forever. And certainly started an epidemic, if you will,
let's
of
be honest,
fast zombies.
And the need for full frontal male nudity in films.
Right, and Cillian Murphy tongue brain. Yeah, he was full Monty. Yeah,
Craig Ferguson mentioned that when he was like on the Late Late Show, like to promote, like I guess Peaky Blinders. He's like, "Yep, people are gonna start googling that now." And I'm like, "Yeah, they've already had."
Well, but I think it's interesting that just real quick to tag on what Becky was saying about that. I think it's interesting that like I really love Garland as a writer, and I think these guys work really well together. And I think we're so used to the auteur director that also is writing the films too at this point, right? And it's important to remember, one of my favorite movies of all time is Network, which was written by Paddy Chayefsky at the era of the superstar writer. Is this an Lemon movie? Yes, absolutely, and it has all his directorial hallmarks. But at that time, like the writer was still like same guy. Like you could do make a name for yourself by doing great writing. Whereas now the writer is like, dude, they'll celebrate the cinematographer for they celebrate the writer, and you can tell with some of these modern films. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so what I was gonna say is, I feel like Civil War is Alex Garland's own personal Icarus moment. Because apparently he hated directing that so much that he quit as a director. Like he's gonna go back to just writing again. So I feel like that really is his version of flying too close to the sun.
Mostly too close to the sun.
Well, that's too bad. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. We had mentioned before that like a lot of like the bleakness of the film probably had a lot to do with like it not doing super well in the box office. But sorry, I'm just coming in and I'm like, here's a fact about this movie. But I think
you're on.
You're on the right podcast.
The rest of us are fact free. So we need somebody to bring in the facts.
Somebody to bring
about
the
frames.
Facts.
Yeah.
So when Sunshine came out, it like was delayed 3 different times for its release, and so it had been like marketed as this thing that was supposed to come out in like October of 2006, and then it got pushed to March of 2007, and then it ended up not actually even coming out until like April or June or something at like a small like fantasy film festival in Germany. And the US release, which was supposed to happen like a year later, then also got pushed back 2 additional times. So like anytime that happens, the momentum kind of like fizzles out. And I think like one, like people didn't really know how to market it. And if you look at who's in it, like Michelle Yeoh was super established outside of the US, and US audiences really knew her from maybe 3 movies, one of which was a James Bond film.
I mean, Crouching Tiger was huge.
And also
but
Chris
other than that-
Evans
Like, I think
had
been in Fantastic
from-
Four, and that was it.
And that was it. Yeah, not
And-
pre-MCU, yeah.
Which,
And so
which,
Cillian-
yeah,
So
no, it makes it
Cillian
really funny that
Murphy-
they just did the Deadpool and Wolverine movie where he literally comes out as
The
you know,
what?
as they just did Deadpool and Wolverine, that movie, and
I
Chris Evans
don't know
is
what
in
you're
that
talking
as
She's seen the movie for us. She knows what you're talking
Has
about.
anybody heard of this? That's not.
Move on.
no,
move
but
on.
he comes out as his Fantastic Four, character. Like it's back to 2000 something Chris Evans.
Hold
We
on,
don't
this
know we
part's
can-
not a bit. Hold on, this part really isn't a bit. Does he actually?
Yeah, he shows
Yeah.
up as
We
spoiler.
thought he
Arm.
was Captain America at first, but
They make it. It's actually pretty well done. Like
When
they make it
was-
seem like he's Captain America, but it's Human Torch from that Fantastic Four.
I definitely
must have
said
slept
on
early.
Letterboxd that I said that I fell asleep. I also
Yeah, I was gonna
got
say
there
it must have been
late.
early on. Okay.
Well, I fell asleep twice. I was only there to see my boy Channing Tatum. That is literally the only reason I went to the movie. And I slept through most of the parts that didn't have Gambit.
Anyway, moving on. So having nothing with literally any of that. Yeah, Chris Evans
go.
is in this.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. 28 Days
Like, it's
Later was
wild, like-
big, but like it was big amongst like art house nerds, right? It wasn't like big. It wasn't like how it is with like him being a star in Oppenheimer. It wasn't like Oscar winning big.
But at this
Christopher
point, he
Nolan.
also would have already been in Cold Mountain. He would have already been
Cold
in
Mountain,
Batman, and then Red
Red
Eye
Eye.
had also already come out. So he was like one of the more established actors, at least amongst like U.S. audiences at this time, which is bonkers.
Crazy to think about. Yeah, Benedict Wong's
To
in
think
this
about.
film. You know, like I mean,
Rose
like
Byrne.
Cliff Curtis.
yeah, Rose Byrne is
Too?
I forgot Rose Byrne was in this, frankly, because she's been in
Yeah,
so much
she
stuff. And
is.
it's like, oh yeah,
And previous to that, she had been in like Troy and Marie Antoinette, and isn't she in like one of the Star Wars movies? Not like Star Wars, but
She
like
was in
she's in
X-Men
like episode
movies.
2 or something.
Oh,
Yeah. Rose Byrne.
that must have been early on in her career.
Oh yeah, you know what?
I'm gonna-
You're right. She's in Send in the Clones. I forgot about that. I was trying to block it from my memory. Frankly, those movies stink.
So sad about the actor.
I know what it's called.
Anyway.
that movie has a canoe in it. There shouldn't be a canoe in a Star Wars. I'm sorry. It sucks.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you.
should be fire
I'm so
either,
brave.
Conan.
So brave to have this stance.
Canoe Wars. It's the real low budget version.
At least we got a good meme template.
This is
out
a
of
stack.
that.
This could have been a Knives Out cast, believe it or not.
Probably
Like a
yeah.
glass onion.
Like now.
a glass, yeah, like
Yeah,
not
I
even
think
that.
Curtis alone like deserves to be in something like that.
I guess retroactively it kind of is. Like if you stop and think about it, because it's all like, oh, I love them. I love them. I love them. Oh yeah.
Literally every actor in this movie, I was like, oh, I love them. Like literally everybody on that ship. And also, I like how everybody on that ship, the only person that really is an American on that ship that is, doing his regular voice is Chris Evans. And everybody
Yeah.
else is pretty much
Is
either
doing it.
Australian, British, Japanese. Like, there's just
New
like,
Zealand.
Or Cillian doing the American accent that he
I'm
does
even-
so well.
Pinbacker's not exactly, a memorable role for because of the dialogue, but like Mark Strong's great in this too. Like he's great in it also, and he's a great that guy dude. Where it's
Did
like,
you-
oh, it's that guy. Yeah,
Did you guys know? For
his
like,
name is Mark Strong. Of course it is. Sorry, Kristina. go ahead.
Becky will probably know this, but like, I don't know if you guys looked into this, but like the cast been like Danny Boyle was like, okay, I want these people to feel like a family, like they got good together, so I'm gonna have them all live together, like for like 16 months and get to know each other before filming, so that it feels authentic when like shit goes down.
so I'm going to shoot them into
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
'Cause at
They
the
actually
point,
did that.
At the point that the
Method
film
acting.
at the point that the film starts, they've like already been like living together in close quarters for like this very long amount of time. So he's like, I need these people to like react to what the other one is going to say before they've actually finished saying it, like, and like pick up on like these little tiny micro things that you only know about a person when you're in that close of
Right.
proximity to them. So he had them like live together. They watched a bunch of movies together. He had them take like scuba diving lessons together. Like, because with scuba diving, like when you're taking lessons, you're also like dependent on the people that you're like in lessons with. Like
Yeah.
it was this incredibly like detailed and like long process. And in a lot of ways, I think that like method acting is stupid and you should just try acting. But in this specific thing, sorry if anybody in here is like a huge fan of like method, but
I like method.
You can be method
where
acting
you're
without
drawing
being
from
a
acting.
jerk.
I think that it's something that like actors make up to like feel like they're like, I did work. And I'm like, no,
Jared
acting
Leto.
is just work. Like, and also he's crazy. Like the stuff that he does for method is also like just bonkers.
Yeah.
Seems like just
Not as
normal guy
crazy as
stuff to
Christian
me.
Bale.
I love sending dead animals to my friends.
Yeah. Seems
But
reasonable.
another thing too was like I totally forgot all these people were in this film together. So like when the award season was coming up, I'm like, oh my god, there's Cillian Murphy with Chris Evans, and I'm like, oh yeah, they did Sunshine together. Oh, there's him with Michelle. Yeah, oh yeah, they did Sunshine together. Like,
Well, it's weird that like I feel like two things are happening at once. In the fact that like it's well remembered by people that remember it, and then like people have this resurgence now because all these people have had these great careers. They were like, wow, this movie's really good. What the heck? Like, how did I not know anything about it? And I think timing has a lot to do with it. I think if it was a little earlier or a little bit later,
Conan,
it probably
you're right.
would have done better.
A lot of people said that this film was just ahead of its time. Like it should have come out like much later, like maybe like in the like late 2010s or something like that.
Well, I mean, also,
but I think by that time it wouldn't have. At that time, the film wouldn't have been able to like exist because they wouldn't have had budget for like the people who were in it. And Chris Evans would have been busy.
And let's not
Sorry,
forget
Captain America
like,
now. I can't go on your little ship or whatever you're putting me on.
And when it came out too, you also had the fact that this was a the ending's kind of divisive because you have a genre change in the third act, like
Big,
also,
That's not from dusk till dawn level, but like almost.
Which you can see like there's the list of films that this is inspired by, and one of them is obviously Alien, and you can see like see like because they're like, oh well, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you can definitely like when the captain and Cillian like Kappa go out and try to fix the ship, like exactly taken from that, and obviously like the shooting of them from the Icarus 1 to the Icarus 2, you're like 100%, and then the third act you're like, oh yeah, that really is Alien. Like they get like by being in the Icarus 1 they get basically like a pathogen, but the pathogen is a guy, is a German. Well, that is
makes sense.
But there's two things that they do in the actual beginning of the movie that I think in like little subtle ways like gives you that impression that they are a family. The one is when Kappa and Chris Evans' character, like Mace or whatever, when they're fighting, and then all of a sudden he runs in and he apologizes by being like, he's silent, and he's like, was that your apology? And he's like, yep. And he's like, okay, accepted. Like that is such a perfect
dudes were totally rocking in that scene, and I was there for it.
It's the most accurate depiction of two men interacting with each other in a way where they're trying to like express actual like emotion that I have ever seen in cinema. And I actually saw it in the theater recently, a couple months ago, like about like a month ago, and I was just like, yeah, that's it. That's how they talk to each other.
Can confirm.
Theater laughed. And
when I was a teenager, I like got in like some trouble and I got sent upstate to like a residential school for a little while, and they only had one phone, and you had to call everyone wanted to call their family every day on this like one phone. And there really were more fights than anything else when somebody would take too long on that, on a phone call back home, and then they would come out and the person's like, they've been 20 minutes in there, and there would be like a altercation that starts up or something based around that. So like that felt very real to me. And then the other one is when Benedict Wong, that character, I think Trey or whatever, he's cooking and he's like, Chris Evans is giving him shit, and he's like, well, do you want to take my shift then? And like, there's like this catty back and forth. And it feels like in that moment you're like, yeah, these are people that have been stuck on the ship together for like, an absurd amount of time at this point.
The casual annoyance, right? It's the same thing with anything where you're locked up with someone for a long time. I mean, a tour is the same way, right? You just like someone can say something and they don't mean anything by it, but just you're sick of hearing them, so like you get annoyed by it. It's like that kind of thing.
That's never happened to me ever.
The think about movies that came out around this time, like spacey type movies, right? Because it's interesting. There's a lot of like District 9 was great, but that's not really a space movie. That's like a movie about being an immigrant, basically. And you have other ones that are really good. Later on the the Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto Star Trek comes out, but it's mostly like Pitch Black and Serenity are the only real like big space movies that come out around this time.
Space wasn't really having much of a moment.
Yeah,
which it's really funny that so I was watching this thing where it was Danny Boyle and it was the guy that they had from CERN. Now the name's slipping my
Brian
mind,
Cox.
but Brian Cox, yeah, just like the actor, and I kept being like,
Not the actor.
Perception guy, yeah.
Different dude.
So Brian Cox and Danny Boyle, in the first 5 seconds of this introducing the movie, admits that he doesn't like Star Wars. He hates all the Star Wars movies. And he doesn't like Star Trek. He hates all those movies. And the audience doesn't really know how to react to that.
That's what we mean.
Now that I've dug a ditch for myself, let's move on. Yeah.
I'll be like, weird.
That's kind of like, I think like one person might have clamped, and then he's like, look, I know it's not like a popular thing.
But then I think that same interview, they also praised Space 1999, which is a freaking great show. And so it's not all I hate genre science fiction either.
Oh no, he likes genre science. He just he was. So I can play this clip. I actually did.
I think he shouted out Eureka, right? That show. I think was it Sci-Fi Channel. What was that?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I remember that show.
Yeah, like
it was fun.
I love watching like sci-fi stuff.
I can find that. Wait, hold on. There's this clip where he's talking about it. So he makes a distinction between like what he considers real sci-fi, pretty much, and what he considers fantasy, which is the
big Star Wars fan. I'm almost alone. I bet I'm alone in this room. I really don't like Star Wars. Really can't stand it.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
And it's a career-ending kind of confession, or it can be the way the profession is built. But it was because I was a punk at the time of punk. And when those films came out, I was a punk. And when you were a punk, you weren't going to go and see a lot of kids' films. These guys are a bit younger than me, and they were, of course, they're complete Star Wars devotees.
I hate Star Wars.
Don't
drag me into your private hell. I hate Star Wars.
I love it.
But you're young.
Anyway, there's that kind of that is fantasy sci-fi. But the other branch of sci-fi is much narrower, and it's serious sci-fi, which is obviously kind of, it doesn't begin with 2001, but that's its most famous example. And you can follow that path, and obviously the great tent poles are Alien, 2001, Solaris, these monumental sci-fi films, which are, of course, about space, of which we know very little about, because we've hardly been there. So they're about the human mind, really, is what they're about. And I've always loved that branch of sci-fi. And one of the problems with making films in that branch is that it is so narrow that you bump into your predecessors immediately. Literally bump into them. You can feel, as somebody asks you a question, you realise all the other directors who've made a serious sci-fi film have answered that question as well. Down to costumes, obvious things like T-shirts. What are the T-shirts? You've got to make invisible T-shirts that you don't notice they're wearing. It's very, very difficult. It needs a brilliant designer. And you didn't notice the T-shirts they were wearing, did you? Because they didn't matter. And it would have mattered if you had, because that's Star Trek. When you notice the T-shirts, that's the fantasy sci-fi again. So
you've kicked Star Wars and Star Trek, and we've 5 minutes in. That's great.
So it's all that kind of stuff, and you bump into them, and every one virtually is the same story, and the story is usually that there's a signal from space, and the crew change course because of it. And if you think through your favourite sci-fi films, serious ones, not the fantasy ones, they all have that plot device in them, and it's because we've not been there, and we don't have any stories about them, or we do, but they're fantastical because they're made up, Anyway, so that was why we got, and I've always been drawn to that. So it's a wonderful. And Alex Garland wrote the script, and we made it actually at 3 Mills Studios just down the road there for $20 million. Actually, is what it cost, which is an amazing.
Okay, so I mean, I get what he's saying about the like fantasy sci-fi, but Star Trek and Star Wars are also very, very political.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
one series of Star Trek is incredibly political, and then Star Wars dances and touches on political themes and topics, but until like Andor didn't really like exist as like a political like drama.
And now we're not,
you know, like.
Yeah, and now
there's
we're not
politics. There's
able to
more
see-
politics around Star Wars than there are politics in Star Wars.
But I mean,
Yeah.
like this
mostly
movie,
because dudes are terrible. Thank
Yep.
you.
Don't
this
get me
movie
started.
specifically kind of comes out of the what Cory Doctorow called as the moral hazard sci-fi, which is more of like he kind of wrote this great essay about moral hazard sci-fi and why it's kind of bad because it's really like wanting to like express your worst sentiments. I do not believe this movie quite fits that rubric. But he was citing cold equations where, you know, the whole point of the story is to throw a little girl out an airlock and justifying it for like however long the story is.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, and there's modern equivalents, knock at the cabin and stuff like that.
Yeah,
too.
and this has some
absolutely.
of those elements to it, which I think is borrowed very nicely with like, you know, having to conserve the oxygen, having to kill off people to be able to complete the mission, all that kind of stuff. So there is some of that there, but I think because it actually does ask broader questions like our relationship to the, you know, to the sun, how that is with God, you know, is the sun God? You know, because most religions do kind of focus around a solar type God, whatever.
Becky
you know,
thinks it is because she has a sun tattoo. You know, she's
Right, exactly.
honoring the sun
Icarus.
god.
Yeah. Careful, Icarus.
Well, and also I think that ties in with the tone too, because I was trying to think of like movies that are like space epics that came before this that have this sort of tone, and the only thing I could really land on, and it's not even really accurate, is Tarkovsky's Solaris, which is the fact that there's just it's like sanguine almost, kind of like everyone's sort of resigned to the. It's like it's very Eastern Bloc Russian in that way, and I've read the book as well, and I'm not. It's not even my favorite Tarkovsky movie, but it's the only one I can really think of that was around at that time. Moon comes like a couple years later. There's some corollaries, right? I like Moon. Moon is good.
I mean, you can, 2001 is bleak at times,
But it's like everybody compares everything to 2001.
Yeah.
And it almost never is anything like it, except for
and I mean, you know,
Interstellar.
you also have like Outland, which was not mentioned, which I do think, it's set on a moon of Jupiter, if I remember correctly. It's a mining planet. They're like bringing in drugs that Sean Connery has to stop, and then it becomes high noon in space. It's a lot of fun if you haven't seen it.
High Noon
I
makes a lot of sense.
don't think a lot of movies are like 2001. It's such a groundbreaking movie, but I do think a lot of directors try to do a 2001.
They try to. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
look, Nolan more or less did, right? We talked about
Yeah.
that when we covered 2001 with Jerry Casale. But I other than like Event Horizon, well, Event Horizon is more like the last act. Let's get real. Like like it's usually one or the other. You have like space horror movie in space, or you have like everything
Jason
is,
X.
Right, Jason X, sure, yeah. Either it's or everything is bleak and terrible, man's inhumanity to man, like, you know,
You get
like,
lost in space and you don't know where you're gonna return home or not.
right. It's the hero's journey in which the hero shall not return, right?
Yeah.
So you get one of those things, but you
That's
don't
why-
get both of them.
Yeah. I don't
And
want
I-
to be lost in space. Okay. No.
I
saw the
like in
Sandra
this
Bullock
one-
movie.
I like in this one that they have enough weird, like, relentless hope that they're going to return home up until like right, and they're like, oh, I guess we really don't have enough oxygen. Like for a lot of it, they're like, we can still get most of the way home, and it's like, dude, you're not gonna get home. Just give up and save everybody. Like,
Well, and that comes back to
Utopian.
like the whole. So it is a moral quandary, bringing up the moral quandary from earlier of like, if you know that this previous expedition, if the ship is still there and there's possibility people could still be alive, do you have a duty to try to save those people, or does the duty lie more with the overall mission, which is literally saving humanity?
I think that
and the
a lot
answer is
of
always the mission.
All right, go ahead, Becky.
I mean, I think that depends on who you ask, right? Like, and there's like so many different things that can like feed into like how or why a person like lands on a different answer to that. But I think that most films and most like pieces of literature that like ask that question, what they're really concerned with is that question. They're concerned with like that philosophical question. But in this movie, it's not actually about like the answer to that question and which one is the most correct answer. The important thing in this film is like psychologically, like what does it do to a person to have to ask themselves that question? and you see it how the way that it plays out for Chris Evans, you see the way that it plays out for Cillian Murphy, and then you see the way that it plays out for like the people who are kind of like on the in between, like Michelle Yeoh's character, for example, and that is so much more fascinating than which one of these is correct or which one of these is most morally just, because sometimes doing the most morally correct thing is just like absolute havoc on like a person's like mental state, especially in something like this. And I think it's a shame that like more people haven't seen this, and I really hope that there's more opportunities for people to see it. It's difficult to watch, like not like difficult to watch, but like to get your hands on it and watch it is difficult because it had a botched Blu-ray release. It exists on Blu-ray now in a way that's fine, but like
I think it's on Tubi.
Oh, is it? I just rented it off of the Bezos site.
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
I was feeling lazy.
Right
yeah, like, I think you can rent it on like Amazon now, but like 5 years ago you couldn't.
You couldn't. You absolutely couldn't. Because I actually was going to rewatch it. I was like, you know what? I think I didn't appreciate this as much when I saw it the first time. And I was like,
same can be said about 28 days later too. Like a lot of people are like, there's no physical copies of it really left either, and it's almost impossible to do it in 4K considering what type of camera was filmed on. So it's like, fuck.
You got to find the trio that he filmed it on. Trio.
I also don't think that they would be able to get, even if they could like make it look good. And like find something like high quality enough to restore it from. I don't think that they would be able to get the rights for it because of the musical rights are one of the big they're never going to be able to renegotiate new ones.
Well, and we talked about that at length on that episode because Godspeed You Black Emperor does not license their music out ever to anything, and they did for the movie, and then it was not really the experience they wanted. And then when they made the sequel, they had a dude come up with a Godspeed You Black Emperor sound alike that then was used in like 7 or 8 other movies because that guy's like, yeah, pay me, I'm ready. Yeah. But it's basically a rip off of, was it East Hastings? Like it's a rip off of that song.
Yeah. That's what I'm excited for 28 years later.
Close enough to avoid litigation, basically, which is if you're in the song replacement biz, which is depressing. That's usually what it is. It's close enough to avoid litigation.
More like the scab replacement biz.
That's right.
Well, but this movie had Underworld doing the score, which
absolutely.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I want to touch on the concept. I think what you're talking about, Becky, is sort of like this idea of ruinous empathy, right? And I think this is something that you never see it in movies that come out now, too. Never. Like it's something there, and it maybe has something to do with like a generational viewpoint on connection and what they want to what people want to see, but like you have to get someone that's previously established as a transgressive and challenging director to be able to do something that even approaches that. Whereas the idea that like this Train Spotting guy made a space movie and it's like kind of weird and sort of like you don't really know what to do with your emotions when it's happening, and it's like that would be very difficult to pull off now. It'd have to be someone that already has a record of success or they wouldn't even be able to get it made. No way. No chance.
I also when I said it's always the mission, I meant like the way that question is used, kind of, it's not plot device isn't the right word exactly, but the way that decision is usually used in this is that everything starts to go wrong when they make when they have to make the choice and they make the big choice, and then that's like the driving force for where everything goes wrong from there. So like every single time I watch one of those movies, I'm like everything's gonna get like, it's like someone yelling at the fucking screen for a horror movie when you're like, no, stay on the mission.
Don't go in the basement. Don't go to the abandoned spaceship. Yeah, it's nothing good ever happens.
They're either playing cards or like they're doing like they're just kind of bored.
Well, they even make like a meta reference, right? Because because there's that like split up. Do you really think that's a good idea?
Okay,
like what is this, like Alien? Like
yeah. But it's funny that there is like which is a. I think a very clever meta reference, whereas now it would just be like intolerable. Someone would make like some MCU style quip and be like, "Oh God, we get it, enough."
What is this, like Alien starring Sigourney Weaver? I think that part of the reason that a lot of this works really well is that they kind of have like this resigned frustration to what Danny Boyle was saying. The fact that you run into these other movies and like things that these other movies have done almost immediately, right? Like, so you need to kind of go along with it. Also, like all these other movies have also worked with NASA, or in the case of like Solaris, like the what USSR equivalent, right? Like they've worked with their own space programs and to figure out the equipment, to figure out like the tech, all that stuff. So you're also talking to kind of the same government bodies and stuff to try to get these things made. And
well, you talk to the scientists, and they're just big nerds, and they love it. I heard once there was a scientist who was just like working. They got a phone call from a writer, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do this move where like you go up and you cut off the engines, and then you fall backwards behind it, turn back on your engines and follow them. But we're going to do it in space. Can it be done?" Like, no. Go, this is for a Star Trek novel. We'll call you back tomorrow. And so a group of NASA scientists sat in a room and figured out how to.
They got the whiteboard going, and
But what I was,
that's awesome.
So what I was trying to the point I was trying to make is that I like that this movie leaned into the fact, like it didn't worry too much about the fact that like, oh, shooting somebody out of the Icarus one, like they had enough of like original ideas that they're like, look, we don't have to worry that much about running into these walls. Like, let's just fucking do it. And I think a lot of that, there's so many scenes and so much stuff that they wanted to put into it. Like there was going to be an actual like sex scene in space between Rose Byrne and Cillian Murphy, and they scrapped that.
Oh, wow.
They had an
that
opening.
would be too unbelievable.
They had an opening and a closing where it was like, they were playing chess on the ship, and that's how the movie was going to begin and end. They scrapped that. It's so many of these ideas that they just kind of trashed. And I like movies.
You can't fucking space. What are you talking about? It'd be floating.
In the time that they were writing this script, which is interesting because it's only like a 1 year period, in some ways it feels like an incredibly long time, but they went through 35 different drafts before getting to what they landed with for the actual script for this movie. And when you think about 35 drafts back and forth within the span of a year, like that's a lot. So there's a lot of things that they had initially toyed with, and like they spent so much time like fine tuning this film, and it's just so widely underseen. And it breaks my heart because I love this movie so much. I think it is so good.
What if they made a movie where that decision to help a stranger actually was a good thing? Like doing the right thing is actually the right thing to do and went against convention. Again, because there's nobody, a lot of other movies would have like, well, the regulations say that we have to, and there'd be like the law keeper, right? Waving the book around.
The actual mission would have burned them alive or something. And they're like, wow, by finding these people, we really did a good thing.
No, but like, I think that it's very ambiguous, right? It's very ambiguous and it's left up to the viewer to decide. Whereas that just doesn't really happen that much these days. Like you have to have a certain kind of director that's going to do that because it's people feel like the need to have it spelled out or whatever. And again, there's this idea of absolute morality somehow, which I'm not sure how you have that when you live in the world that we live in, but that's a different discussion. If it doesn't become the big crux of the movie of if they go to Icarus 1 or not. It's just something that happens. It's a side quest that happens on the way that eventually, raises the stake by ostensibly dooming everybody.
And the guy.
Well, and it also creates doubt, like within, like the doubt that creates, like within yourself, right? Where it's like, I've already made one mistake.
Right. Yeah.
I was wrong one time. What if the next thing, like I'm wrong about, and similar.
What
to,
if we fire this device into the sun and it doesn't do the thing that I think it's going to do, and that I've staked my entire life and the life of humanity on?
Yeah, like that's a lot to like weigh on a person, like the way that like physically and mentally and like spiritually and emotionally like weighs on a person to have yourself rattled to the point that like every single aspect of your being and everything that you have ever thought or believed in is now potentially out the window. Like,
it's a lot.
Stresses me out just to think about it.
Well, the old saying goes, if you don't succeed, quit.
If at first you don't succeed, just quit. Don't get too invested.
Yeah. It is funny too that the reaction, the literal reaction that the device has to restart the sun is sort of the exact same thing that was sort of like, oh yeah, this might happen in Oppenheimer. Where it's like, oh yeah, that would suck, and it's like, there's a lot of
the two things in Oppenheimer is, number one, the bomb doesn't work and they've wasted 2 years of their lives. Number two, the bomb ignites every single molecule.
That's literally what I'm talking about.
Yeah. There's like those two, but I'm saying like there's those two separate, like one path is like, look, this bomb does not work at all, and we've wasted so many fucking government resources in the middle of like that's a
Yeah.
possibility too in Oppenheimer that you're like, come on, how like if you didn't know the history of it, right? Like you're like, how is this gonna?
It's like this movie was leading for Cillian Murphy to do Oppenheimer, and also too, this is not the first time Oppenheimer's actually ever been mentioned to him in his life. Again, when he was on Craig Ferguson, they were talking about like World War II. He's like, they needed like a big neutron bomb to stop, the Nazis, and I'm like, this is like 2014 or 2014. I'm like, well, Cillian Murphy, 10 years from now, you're gonna be quite shocked.
They threw Conan at the Nazis, and he was the one that
was weaponized. Yeah.
No, I like the which I should have cut this together, and I wish I did. There's the because there's these two separate things. They brought Cillian Murphy to CERN, which is hilarious to see the construct, because it hadn't been finished yet, but the Large Hadron Collider, like they were in the process of actually building it. And that guy Brian Cox is like one of the managing overseer people with seeing the technology. So they brought him there, and I like that guy was really excited to be hanging out with Cillian Murphy. Like he's really excited to be like a Cillian Murphy friend for like a week or something. And they got drunk like multiple days and talked about the universe. And then you hear like you hear him talk about it in another interview, and it's him talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I went there for 2 or 3 days and talked to scientists," and that's all he says. I was like, "That's not all you did, buddy." Like,
and then by the end, he's like, "I'm an atheist now."
Yeah, which is
he was already agnostic at that point, but then it was like really thinking about the world and like the decisions that like people like have to be put into like potentially, and like what people are willing to like say yes to or like sacrifice. Like he's like there's no way
that there's a God or whatever, because I mean you gotta think he was a good Irish Catholic boy, but then as he got older he became more agnostic. But then like it's like, okay, I'm like this is definitely making me like not believe in like a higher power or whatever. Like science is important, it matters more. I'm an atheist.
Well, this movie was developed at the same point that number one, like the theory of the God particle, and like that book came out, right, talking about like the particle they needed to complete the equation that they're theorizing about. Number one, and number two, obviously this movie comes out a year after like An Inconvenient Truth with Al Gore, which I know that's not the beginning of climate science. It's obviously not, and I know it's not the beginning of climate change as like a theory, but it is like
he invented it.
The mainstream, right? Like the mainstreaming
internet.
of global warming as a phrase, and like that, that concept for like a mainstream audience. Like my dad was one of those. My dad was one of those. Like he's a green architect. He was one of those people that was like really into the environmental stuff. But I remember that movie coming out was such a game changer. Like people kept calling his phone, being like, "Okay, can you build a sustainable, like an ecological, sustainable house for me?" And like that was like the most the most traction he got up to that point, like building these houses for people because of An Inconvenient Truth coming out. So this is like it's a big time for science in general. This moment.
Yeah, it's something to remember about in like the mid to late 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I just have to say it. It definitely existed before all of that. But as far as the in the mainstream of like, there was like Inconvenient Truth. There was Day After Tomorrow, which is not a great film, but like there were these main
Arrival that came out in the 90s. That was about global warming.
Right. There was, it did exist before, but as a mainstream issue that everybody was talking about. And they talked about global warming first, and then it pivoted over to climate change, of course, because it's a more scientifically accurate term. Mm-hmm. Anyone with like the slightest interest in like the world around them definitely knew about it, but it wasn't something that was like you didn't see actors and actresses like opining about it necessarily, or you saw Tim Robbins doing it, but not like not like most.
Like the mobile, which is fucked up. This is like an entire thing, but like the Exxon Mobil reports, right? Like that got leaked, like a couple decades or a decade later. Those were in like the 60s, and they already had been like, hey, the world's warming up and we should probably do something about this.
Or like even like with the sun and how with climate, like the sun, like again the whole point of this is about like the sun in this movie, and it's like we're overestimating how powerful the sun is now. It's just getting worse and worse and worse, and the heat's getting worse, and there's these flares that keep coming up that might impact cellular, electrical, and I'm like, well, fuck, this is not good at all.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, the environmental justice movement started in the 70s. It took about 30 years for it to reach the mainstream, and it took George W. Bush being president, basically. Like, they had to put an oil man in the White House before like it really started being like treated quote unquote seriously. But anyone that knew. Like, I was vice president of the environmental club when I was in high school, right? My friend was
flex
president. I know. Like, it's the only office I'll ever hold, I'm sure. But but I think that there was very few, but it didn't appear much in media because it was considered fringe a lot of time to do that, unless it was like tacitly put in this like apocalyptic sci-fi thing. We talked about some of this when we did the movie night apocalypse stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it was considered dystopian futurism as a narrative point rather than like talking about real things. Whereas there is stuff in here, and I think that this is not there's not a lot of hope in this movie, but there is that great line. If you wake up one morning, it's a particularly beautiful day, you'll know we made it.
It's not necessarily a disaster film. I mean, it has elements of that. But.
Because it's sort of, and then like, I think spoiler alert for a movie for like almost 20 years old, that like, and then you see the last scene, you see like, okay, it's the sun's coming in, like it worked. So as crazy as it is for it to fall back, because you get so tied up with like, again, the alien in space, Pinbacker, simultaneously shifting to the next universe and like harrying Cillian and Rose Byrne. But like, I think that does all work, but it was not well regarded at the time. People thought of it as a bait and switch, right? Yeah. They loved the first 2/3, and
some
did
people
not
still
like
do.
the
Yes.
first third.
Yeah, you go online and look at it. There's a lot of people are just like, what the?
Where's that third act?
Most of the Letterboxd reviews look like this, by the way.
Yeah. I hope you collected mine because mine was actually a non-thirst one. I guess people like Cillian with longer hair.
No, he looked good. I would have to say that was like probably the second best haircut ever in a movie. The first being Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible 2.
I thought you'd say Legend.
Also, too, I forgot Cillian Murphy did a romantic comedy that went straight to like video with Lucy Liu in 2007 as well. I forgot about that. He's like, you don't see me doing rom-coms, and I'm
that's
like,
almost 2007 sentence ever. Like,
it is. He's like, I don't got a face for rom-coms. I'm like, but you.
Cillian Murphy, Lucy Liu, straight to video, romantic comedy. It's like, yeah, that's 2007.
He played the film is so like coded for us because he played he owned like old movies, like he had his own like movie store with like classic B movies, and so he was such a film buff, and I'm like, oh, Neil from this movie, you would have loved Movie Night Extravaganza.
R.I.P. Yeah, I think that it's not an overbloated cast. There's a large cast, but it's not an overbloated one. And I think the winnowing down of it all makes sense.
They're doing multiple jobs on the shit. Like even in the case of the actual shit, right? Like
you can't all get that screen time.
It's like a skeleton crew. It feels
it's
like
it's not a large. Well, it has to be because of the, what they're thinking about the mission is, right? But I think one of the things that really gets over with that is when you have the conservation of oxygen, where you can only make it if there's these many people living, and the computer, who is like one of the most unhelpful computers in the history of movies, I might add.
Yeah,
not helpful. When the computer is like, actually, calculations say that it's not going to work because there's too many people. Like, what are you talking about?
Snap correction. Snap.
and then the reason why is because Pinbacker, of course, is on there, and like that. When I first saw that, I was like, oh, like it hit. I mean, obviously I know it now. Once you've seen it, but like, that part is like, for me, was like the scariest part of the movie. I'm just like, oh wow, what does that mean?
Both Alex Garland and Danny Boyle are very good at the suspense, like writing in suspense, right? Like, so, and it's like a perfect one of those, like, you get a phone call in your house, so you're like, the call is coming from inside the house, like that kind of like horror movie trope almost, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, oh, you're not gonna make it. Oh, why not? There's one more, like, there's 5 people on board, and like even in your head, you have to think about it. You're like, oh fuck, who's the 5th one? And he's like, who's the 5th one? And the thing goes silent, and you're like,
and it's like I don't know.
It's like the horror movie tropes about like who's going to get killed off first.
Right, yeah, but it's also like it's an ambiguity. It's a fact that it is it's a alien
the answer
first.
all of them.
Alien did it first, and it's Jaws did it before that, sure. But like the idea of being like isolated somewhere, and like there's someone here, and you don't know who that is, and they probably aren't coming to give you a birthday cake. You know, like it's that kind of mindset.
Although it would have been funny if they were. Happy birthday! No, we need one last person on the ship.
Why are you having lit candles? We're running out of oxygen.
Blow those candles out. We have limited O2. Yeah, exactly.
Bring some plants. Oh no, never mind.
I love the garden idea on the ship. Like I really fucking love that.
Which is sound ecological science.
Yeah, which they did way better than Babylon 5 did.
And I also like how close they're guarding the amount of oxygen until the moment that Mace is just like, no, douse the fire in oxygen and it'll burn out. You know, it'll burn out much faster because of it is like the whole time they've been so religiously conserving their oxygen. It's just like, let's use as much oxygen as possible.
Well, scientifically though, that does actually make sense. It seems counterintuitive, but I also liked how the on the Icarus 1, you see that like it's been there for forever, and like their garden has like gone wild, like it's like going crazy. Not on this show. Sometimes on stage I do, which is why I have a fan pointing directly at me. But yeah,
I could be like the girl just holding the fan while you're singing, just walking around, you like throwing ice at you.
It's not just the riffs are hot, so is the guy. But I think it's good because it shows like, well, that's been there for a while. So yeah, it has everything it needs to grow. There's no pesky humans taking up any of the life support resources. So it makes sense that it would just keep growing, and it would grow wild.
Yeah, and
plants, in summation. Yeah.
Well, it's like it feels also like a metaphor for like or like kind of like what happens when humanity is kind of taken out of the equation and everything's left. Like it's still a perfectly balanced ecosystem, and it's like like once we fucking disappear from the earth, like because inevitably that will happen. Like everything's just back to that perfect ecosystem. Like I feel like we're the balance of we're the things that have thrown everything out of balance in some ways. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Well, and they're not wrong. Dust is largely composed of sloughed off skin, but gross. They're not wrong, but
I'm surrounded by it.
That's a lot of skin. It was like someone molting, like Jesus.
I clean houses for a living, man, and I mean, I got clean and dust my room, but I still got like an air purifier thing because my sister's like, the apartment still smells like cigarette smoke, and I'm like, no shit. But like, you look at it, and you look in like the filters,
all that was happening on the Icarus 1.
I know. It's
but 7 out of 8 of them had burned alive too. So like they're like, oh, dust is mostly human skin. Like that dust is probably higher than the average amount of dust. Yeah.
You can incinerate like that.
We'll wait for the forensics experts to get back to us on that. Yeah.
Yes, I'm working on it.
Space forensics.
Oh, you're a resident.
You're on it. She's on it. Yeah.
Yeah. The NCIS in space is going to be on next week's episode.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking for like a medical procedure. Kristina's like, I'm on it, and it's like, oh, yeah, all right.
Apparently, the results are that's very, very bad.
All right. That's what I would have guessed.
I'm here to help.
I like Michelle Yeoh being like the gardener on this. I think that's good. I think it's awesome.
And she took her job seriously. I fucked with it. I liked it.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, exactly. It didn't look like she was just. I'm saying the lines that I was given. It looked like she actually knew what she was talking about and cared, which are things that both help if you're trying to maintain a garden. I think that a lot of the divestment of Shipley duties got more and more anarchic as time went on, but I think there's a good division of labor with it, and it makes sense. It's sort of like you wouldn't expect there to be. Sometimes you see like a movie or a TV show or something, and you're like, okay, how are they running all this stuff themselves? Everyone's just sitting around. No one's actually doing any work. One of the reasons why like Firefly and Serenity was so great is you kind of got to see like the for lack of a better term, the banging on the pipes of it all more often than not. And I think that it could have been a distraction, but I think it gets across the point well that they're in this thing doing this mission, and there's not a lot of support for them. And one of the reasons why, like again, going back to the decision of going back to Icarus 1, when they burn out their communications clusters, right? They're really on their own at that point. Not that anyone could really do anything other than like, well, peace out, or anything along those lines.
We did what we could.
But then, like, to be totally isolated, and then again go back to the earlier thing I was talking about like, and you're not alone. Okay, horrible. That is not great. That is not a good situation to be in. Humanity rides upon your mission, and you got a crazy dude that's actively trying to kill you and make that mission fail. Not
with your
great.
Vibrating,
vibrating scalpel. Yeah, exactly.
What the hell? I mean, is it for her pleasure?
Come on. No.
It's for his pleasure, not
what is this? Crash by Cronenberg? Thank you.
Yeah, they do it so they deploy it so successfully though, with the like computer not answering, and Cillian Murphy just left being like,
"Is this a Hall of Fame of bad computers and movies? This computer has to be one of them, right?"
Yeah.
Well, but in some ways, also, it's like, well,
it's not.
It was just answering the question it was asked, right? Because like it's the thing I think is like really interesting about this, because like you watch a lot of like films that are set in space, like whether they're like science fiction or they're just something that is in space, and they have these like synthetics or like AI or computer programs or whatever it is, that will just infer what the most helpful thing would be, and that is like such like a highly advanced like level of like development like within an AI. Like a lot of people don't have that, like whereas like realistically, like think about like, I mean, we don't really have like AI, we have like machine learning, we don't truly have like AI, interactive AI yet. But you just get the answer for the thing that you asked.
Yeah.
And that's what this is doing. But you're frustrated because you're like, no, you're supposed to be a person, computer, and you're supposed to be helpful. And it's like, well, it was being helpful. It answered the question it was asked. And if you don't ask the right question, you don't get the right answer. And it's not until he kind of like accidentally is like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, run the math again because there's this many people. And it's like, there's this many people. And it's like, wait, why didn't you say that like 45 minutes ago?
Well, narratively, it totally works, but from perspective
absolutely.
Of being someone in the ship, it kind of sucks.
I think narratively it works. I also think like realistically, that's probably what would actually happen.
Oh yeah, of course. And throughout this, like a couple times, there's like a couple times where he kind of asks like the wrong question, or like I don't know, like the machine finishes kind of for him, like the whole sequence where he's trying to show whether the bomb is actually going to work, and you're seeing the math, and it's like, oh, it's dropped below 45%. Like there's not even it's not even worth calculating at this point, pretty much. Like he has this relationship with the computer where it's like each of these times, like it might not be the most helpful answer, but it's like it's the direct answer to the question that he asked. And I feel like they set that up in the other scene where he's talking to it and he's trying to do the simulation, because it's like there's a matter of guesswork where it's like you can't really calculate any of these things. Or if a guy jumps into the thing and they don't know who that is, like the computer can't really tell you, right? Like it's like he's the fifth guy. I don't know. Like you didn't give me his name.
Right. It's like, I don't know. I've never met him, but there's someone.
I don't know him. Never heard of him.
I didn't do my background research on the random dude that just came into this ship. My bad.
I bet
this random dude. I don't. Whatever with this random dude.
I bet jumping out of the Icarus 1 to the Icarus 2 felt so good on his fucking. His skin is like burning off and everything, and he has that few. He probably had like a few seconds where he's out in like the minus 273 degrees Celsius like space or whatever. Probably was like like. But he couldn't do that because they would have caught it and they would have been like, oh, why is that guy? Well, who's this guy and why is he moaning?
Who's that guy?
Yeah. Probably sacrilegious to his weird little like religion of one or something. It seems like he's into it almost. Other than the fact that when his like limb is literally being ripped apart, it seems like he doesn't like that so much. But
I also like how Cliff Curtis's character was kind of a reflection of that character of Pinbaker. Which shout out to Cliff Curtis because his father was dying while they were filming this, and he had to leave a little early and to take care of his dad, and his dad actually passed away shortly after that. So like a few of the pickup scenes that they needed for him was actually his stand-in, and a lot of those scenes ended up getting cut, but you can find those online if you want to see them. But Cliff Curtis was honestly like one of the most underrated actors in this film, because like he's always great in everything he's in. It's just he's always in small parts with better actors. so he gets forgotten a lot.
Right.
There's this somebody made a compilation because obviously Cliff Curtis is Maori, like his family is descended from the New Zealand tribe, and there's this really fascinating like compilation, like it's like the Cliff Curtis like ethnic compilation. It's every ethnicity of a character that he's played. He's played everything from like, so they've cast him as like Mexican cartel members. They've cast him as like Latin American, like guerrillas. They've cast him as like an Arab guy before. They've cast
he's in Three Kings, and I think he plays an Arab dude.
Yeah. He does play a caveman in was it 10,000 BC?
And sure they also like cast him, I think, as a Greek guy. Like there's all these different ethnicities that they've cast him in, and somebody made a supercut compilation. And then the last one is Fear the Walking Dead, because he actually is Maori in that.
I think one of the Fast and Furious movies he gets to play like at least a Pacific Islander. I don't know. They didn't really say because The Rock was his brother. So
really, they're like, look, it's close, but you got to be Samoan. We need another guy that's Samoan.
I still can't believe that there was like a sex scene in this that they cut out. That's really weird to me. Like it feels like that would have, first of all, been something people want to see, but secondly, kind of like it doesn't seem like a sex scene kind of movie.
No.
So a lot of the reasons
as much as I would want a sex scene with Cillian Murphy, I'd be like, this is not the movie for it.
Right, this is not the time.
Well, but that's a lot of why they like cut it out too, is because like it's the same reason why like there's like moments. There's only like 2 moments that are like haha funny in the movie. And the discussion between like Boyle and Garland was that like they're in this situation in space where everything that's happening is so like heightened and like everything is potentially like about to end. Urgent. And everything is out to kill you. There is no time for comedy. There is no time for sex. Like it's only time for like, focusing. And so that's why they like ultimately like cut it. But a lot of the reason for like having it is because they're like,
like what?
Well, I think like a lot of it is like it's like, well, people are going to expect this from like a film, right? Like they're going to expect, and then they're like, it doesn't matter what they're expecting. Like this doesn't. We can't have this.
I feel like a movie like this is how people think the tone of MCU and DCU movies are supposed to be, very dark and like not full of comedy. And I'm like, nah, man, this is completely different.
I think
this one's good.
My thought would have been, like if they had that sex scene, it would have been like they're wasting oxygen.
Yeah.
But there's like there's the moment where Cillian, like Robert, not the Oppenheimer one, Kappenheimer. There's a moment where Kappenheimer, wakes up and Rose Byrne, she's like in his room and like he's sure, like that feels like a moment that has a lot of sexual tension, but then all of a sudden it's like wah, 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 and it's like the shields are down, and I feel like that was a good like like it seems like maybe something was about to happen, like they're flirting and everything, and it's like nah, dude, get back to the ship, you guys are wasting time.
Yeah, it like fulfills that thing like within you where you're like, well, there's got to be like something, and then you're like, oh, of course they don't have time.
But when
like I get it, they could die, but still.
It's like when they on Predator, they got the note from the studio to say put in a sex scene, and it's like
we'd have to put in a woman first.
Well, they did, but like what are you gonna do?
I know they did, Andy. That's the joke. Sometimes you say things.
That's the joke.
Okay,
Sex in a Predator.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was just Arnold Schwarzenegger said in a lot of interviews, what am I gonna do? Like, let's go behind this tree.
Well, right, because where? Yeah, exactly. We're busy on the hunt in this jungle. Let me get some.
I just had sex behind the tree. Imagine it. Anyway, back to the story.
Some weird millipede going up your butt crack. Thank you. You got that image.
Yeah, thank you, Conan, for that vision.
Human millipede? Is that the?
No, regular kind.
Just to like veer us in a different direction.
Thank you.
Please, we clearly need help.
The thing I think is really cool about like the casting of this, and I don't know, I didn't like think about mentioning this earlier, but like for the type of cast that it is and how like early in their careers most of these people are, or at least like in their US careers, a lot of these people are at this point. No one in this cast really got it because no one sent in an audition tape. every single person in this film, Danny Boyle had seen them in something else and was like, I know what I want to see this person do, and like reached out to them and was like, hey, I got this thing. Like, is this a thing that you would want to do? Like, send a tape.
What did he
You
see
know?
Chris Evans in? Like, Not Another Teen movie?
Chris
Oh,
Evans
man.
might be the one example or the one exception to that.
Yeah.
So
I like-
okay,
I
maybe
like
not
the-
every one of them, but like
I like the idea though. I like the idea that he had to call it Benedict Wong and be like, "Look, I really liked you in in this movie. I'd like to see you fuck up and kill yourself. Can I get that out? Can I get that out of you?"
It's a heavy scene, man. Like when then they go in and like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. But
Benedict Wong had been in Dirty Pretty Things 5 years previous.
This is the second movie.
And so that's where Danny Boyle had like seen him previously. Michelle Yeoh, a lot of that came from like specifically from Tomorrow Never Dies, but then also a little bit of like Memoirs of a Geisha. Like, I mean, obviously like Crouching Tiger, like huge movie, but like
Crouching
those
Tiger
two
was
films
huge, yeah.
specifically, Memoirs of a Geisha and Tomorrow Never Dies are the things that like for Danny Boyle, he was like, this person, I want to work with this person. Like Cliff Curtis, like was in Whale Rider and like Training Day, and like I don't know, it's just like I feel like that doesn't happen very often where you have a core cast like that and because there's not really extras in this movie
that everyone has gone on to like much bigger things, and like in some cases,
and like he would be,
multiple like Academy Award winners in this cast.
Yeah, like pretty much like back to back. Michelle Yeoh was
Yeah.
the year before, and then Cillian Murphy was the year after.
Mhm.
And of course, Chris Evans with Marvel and other movies where he doesn't get to do Marvel. Benedict Wong, of course, Marvel as well. He's fun as Wong and that. But like a lot
Must
of
be real easy for him to remember who's talking to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the reverse version of that when they're like, "Oh, we should get Chris Evans in this. I really liked him in Sunshine. We should make him Captain America."
Maybe that's where director Bong got the idea for Snowpiercer. Who knows?
Yeah. I really like when Chris Evans does stuff that's not not Marvel or not like superhero type stuff, right? Like I really like
Knives
his,
Out?
like whenever he's like in like every time I've seen him in something that's not that, I'm like, hell yeah.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
he's that perfect embodiment of that douchebag character.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he really I mean, I'm hoping it's not going to be another like Robert Downey Jr. thing, but like Chris Evans is a lot better when he's like not doing all the Marvel stuff. Like that's for sure.
You're bringing him back for Fantastic Four.
I mean, he can't. His variant died.
Hey, in this he's also burned to death, I guess. Like,
man, he just can't catch a break.
But I mean, yeah, the guy is
But,
decent
like,
actor.
also-
he's good.
yeah, I was like, and dying doesn't really like mean anything because they can just bring back, you can be like a different version of you but played by the same actor.
Yeah.
Also, these movies are for
See,
comic books.
I
and
didn't
the comic
sleep.
books people
I
die all the
didn't.
time.
I didn't sleep through
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. I did notice enough. I wasn't
But
like long enough.
Chris Evans as Human Torch and not Captain America is one of the great gags that land in that film. And-
Because
Yeah.
Deadpool's like, oh my god, he's gonna say it. Avengers Flame on. Sorry, what? That was
it is perfect. It's well done. I know you despise the movie, Becky. We're not going to
was
relitigate it. We
bad.
just covered it like 2 weeks
I
ago or whatever.
I
So.
can't believe I slept through that.
I can't believe you slept through it too. It's real early on.
Did you have a crowd with you or no?
I mean,
Like
yeah.
a full theater?
I mean, not a full theater.
Mine was full every time I saw it. But I can't wait for other movies to come out too.
I saw
Can
it.
you
at,
imagine them
work.
trying to remake this movie though?
other movies.
Wait, I'm
other
sorry.
movies are-
Other movie. I can't wait for other movies to come out too. Like any specific ones or just movies in general?
Beetlejuice, no
Like
surprise.
the
Oh,
Gray
okay.
Man.
Okay.
Oh,
Like I live in a small town, so
So
we don't get
y'all-
any like
y'all-
bougie
y'all
ass
know-
movies here.
Y'all know other movies? They're
Y'all
crazy.
ever heard of other movies?
Imagine them trying to remake this movie, considering this movie was ahead of its time. It would not hit, unfortunately, I think. Because this kind of has a bit of a... I would say this movie has a bit of a cult following.
I think people would want it to be like a Solaris or an Event Horizon, and not what it is, which is like some kind of unique thing that does not
Frankenstein.
exist. Yeah.
I also want them to stop remaking things and start making more new things. I just feel like
yes.
I'm
Yes,
too
well,
like
there's
I'm
that
too over remake fucking culture.
I think they would also make it a streaming series, which might be fine. You know, like
Yeah, I would.
if they
it'd be a
did.
solid one.
yeah, the
or
Dead
like
Ringer
a,
Screamer series was worth it. Where
Dead
I
Ringers
think-
is so good.
I could see
Yeah.
this as like one of those limited series, like the 6-episode ones.
Limited event series. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll take
Limited
like what,
event
2 years
horizon,
or 3 years
you
per
know?
season.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? Why not? Listen, Letterboxd is a social media site for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the films they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, the films that they exclusively posted so thirsty reviews for one or more of the leads within the film. And of course, this is a bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say. Everyone gets to chime in and opine on the films, talk about the ones they love, and it's best done succinctly. And every week, these are collected for the purposes of this show, where we put them on screen, react to them, laugh with them or at them. And these are the Letterboxd one-liners for Sunshine. Let's go. If I had a nickel for every time Cillian Murphy set off a bomb, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happens twice.
Look at them eyes.
I like that in this. It's like, oh, we're gonna have him set off a solar bomb or a stellar bomb, I guess. And in the other one, they're like, oh, let's have him set off a nuke. They should just keep having him set off different kinds of bombs. Like
Different kinds of
They
bombs.
get smaller and smaller.
You can make it a genre, get a tag going. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one, he's like, oh, let's have him set off a love bomb.
Is the fear gas in bomb form in Batman? I can't remember. It's been too long.
It's not.
No.
Okay. It's a missed
Imagine if it
opportunity.
was though. What's with Cillian Murphy and bombs, man?
I don't know.
He loves bombs. He's into them. He's into bombing things.
But not Palestine, thankfully.
It's funny. This is the next one. Do you guys think Cillian Murphy wants to fuck a bomb?
I'd watch that. I'd be curious enough. But they're like
we never
Cillian
even-
Murphy. Cillian Murphy is a scientist who has discovered a bomb that's going to save humanity. The only catch is he's in love with the bomb and doesn't want it to leave him. And it's
Isn't
like,
that the plot to the Barbenheimer porno parody? I believe.
It's like
Wouldn't know.
Titan plus Doctor Strangelove. Yeah.
There we go.
it's just
I
all
would
love
watch that. What is it? It's like Cillian Murphy or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Fuck the Bomb. Maybe I need to workshop that a little bit. But
We're gonna
I
work
think
on
it's-
that.
I think it's pretty close. I think
When he
it's
comes
pretty
on the
close.
pod, we'll tell him about our idea, and he's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm never coming on this pod."
Cillian
again."
Murphy, how I learned to stop being horny and fuck the bomb.
It already premiered on Netflix, actually. So,
Dude, Netflix is like
quick turnover.
done. Option.
And then also canceled after season 1. No surprise, things went downhill after Mace cut those locks.
True.
I like the idea though that it's canceled because they're like, I don't like the way he was looking at that bomb, and people get mad on Twitter.
It was very controversial. Yeah. Hashtag bombfucker. Thank you. Catch me in the O2 garden hitting that space suite with Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
Same. I love the guard. Like, I don't know. Like, I was like, that's my favorite thing that they've created for this. Like, uniquely to this, and as far as I've seen, like, but I think NASA gave them the idea for it.
I mean,
Yeah, it's not an original idea, but I think
Yeah.
it's not really seen on screen too much.
you don't
before.
see it.
True,
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't see it that as much. I think you see it more now,
It's-
but like you definitely didn't
I
see it
think
at the time.
Yeah, it's in like you see it a lot in like novelization, but
Yeah.
not so much in like film.
Right.
Yeah, because
in
like The
space.
Expanse has it, but like it's like they barely deal with it.
Yeah, the hardest of hard sci-fi series has it. What a shocker! I mean, I like it, but Jesus Christ.
So NASA, I'm pretty sure, gave them the idea for the garden, and NASA also gave them the idea for the gold-plated Kenny suit, which is another
which is
thing.
made
that
out
I
of
like.
mylar.
I like that they call it the Kenny suit. That's-
Yeah, I couldn't stop picturing fucking Kenny after I saw the clip where they're talking about how it's the Kenny suit, and I was like, oh my god, they killed Kenny.
But yeah,
Have
they
you-
actually use mylar on that, which is the same as, stuff that they use on the space shuttles when they come back into Earth.
There you go.
So yeah,
So Mylar, everybody. In summation, Mylar. Have you yet
Our
to see
new
a space
sponsor.
film?
Our new sponsor, Mylar.
We're brought to you by Mylar. Have you yet to see a space film where everyone just has a nice time? Facts.
Yeah.
Facts. Do they exist?
I like the
Space
wait,
truckers.
I like the
Space truckers.
I like the
Come on.
tags underneath it.
2000, 2007,
Blood.
Blood, Horror, Melancholy, Fruity. Watch 2022. Fruity.
Well, that one
little
scene
fruity.
where Chris Evans dies and Cillian Murphy's on the radio with him.
A little fruity, yeah, I agree.
That
No,
is
it's a little-
the most homoerotic scene in the movie.
Well, no, it's all the fruity when they fight, and then they're both like panting, and they're like, "Yeah, we need to conserve oxygen." Like, that's a little fruity.
I am the sun, and this is all just a ploy to have all these sexy people come hang out with me, and I will not apologize.
Well, it's like the blood sacrifice,
Shine
right?
on.
Like they get up there, and the sun's like, "I need a blood sacrifice," and then I'll start shining again. And my blood sacrifice is 7 hot actors.
Exactly. Turns out those ancient civilizations were onto something. Those Sumerians, they really had their finger on the pulse. Thank you. Sumerians, everybody. Can that vibrating
our
scalpel
new
fuck off,
sponsor.
please? We brought to you by Sumeria. Can that vibrating scalpel fuck off, please?
I could think of 1 or 2 ways to use that. Anyway,
My word.
But like, what is the point if it's shaking? How can you get a straight line to cut with? I don't get that.
That's actually a really good point.
What?
Yeah, I don't
know.
know.
I was
I got nothing on that. Yeah.
I was gonna make a really dark joke, and I'm not going to.
We appreciate your restraint. It's such a human reaction to look at something that doesn't work the way you want it to and just go, hey, what if we just nuke the shit out of it?
True.
yep.
I mean, look, it's worked here, and probably nowhere else. I guess
It worked one time. It only has to work one time. That's it.
Yeah.
And
I guess Japan's economy's been better since, but I think that's a big price to pay.
woof. Mark Strong, just like me for real, needs to use large amounts of sunblock anytime he's remotely close to the sun.
Yeah, same. I'm a vampire.
Except Curtis did not use any fucking sunblock. And
No.
in this, and he had like his lip was starting to peel.
It's like what's his face in Oppenheimer had to do that.
Oh, yeah. Safety. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good sunblock energy in that film. I don't know. Maybe naming the mission Icarus wasn't a good idea.
I think it was a great idea.
By the way,
Perfect.
I love the tag in this. Sad people in space is good. I like that.
The
I
only
want to know
better
what else
name
is
is
tagged
the,
that way.
I wonder if that was like, you know
question.
how when they ship films over like to different countries, it's like a completely different title just so people don't really know. I bet you this movie was titled Sad People in Space at
In like
first.
China or something.
Yeah.
Well, like Sunshine is like, I don't know, it can mean
A
it can
happy
mean
sounding movie.
Yeah, but it can also
Yeah.
mean this, or it can mean like, the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Like,
If you steal my sunshine.
Like
Remember
I
that
get
song?
I get why it's called that, but I do not think the title really did it much good
I just think of Len.
either. So anyway, those are Letterboxd one-liners for Sunshine. Please follow the show on our Letterboxd HQ account at Movie Night Extra, where we're covering all the great movies that we cover on all of our episodes, stories, and ancillary content. We're actually a few weeks behind. That's fine. We'll get there eventually. You can follow your host Forrest over there. Icarus did nothing wrong. He's at Always Flacco. He's logging all the stuff you see on this show and lots more. I am SPF 2000. Boy, that came in handy for that last one, didn't it? At Conan Neutron. I burn like an SOB too. And I am logging the
you
highbrow
can
stuff.
afterwards at least.
Not usually. Sometimes.
I tan
Yeah.
olive.
Highbrow stuff, midbrow stuff, populist fare. Follow me along for the Criterion Challenge as well for the Film School Dropouts Challenge. I am on there doing all of that stuff at Conan Neutron. Cillian Murphy's hair. It's Andrew Wool over there at Right About Now too. Is watching all the weirdest stuff, so you don't have to. Maybe so you can. There's been a lot of kung fu in your diet lately. I know that. So follow him along to see whatever is in J. Andrews' world. Thank you very much. I can't believe I just came up with that. All right, Kristina, Adam, Kristina, careful, Icarus. She.
No, it's careful, Icarus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the tone note on your subtitle.
We
login.
We heard the distress signal.
is on Letterboxd, deigning to log things now and again. You logged this one. You logged a couple other ones on there. So follow at Kristina on Letterboxd, and you can find out what she has decided to log this year.
Yes. Don't worry, I'll be logging more of the movies.
Becky Rice, my friend Becky Rice.
Never had a sunburn, famously.
Famously not known for her sunburns.
Never once.
Who knew? She is on Letterboxd as well. It's Becky R, I think is the
KR.
KR.
Wow. Thanks for
I don't have it in front of me.
half-ass internet research.
I just typed the first couple letters and it comes up. What do you want from me?
We're not a research heavy podcast.
Well, but I also feel like I watch so many films and I'm constantly logging films that you don't really have to search for my profile if you follow me, because I am just relentlessly in your feed, and I am so sorry.
Can confirm. I usually don't mind.
The thing about films and film festivals is that it is always a film festival season somewhere. So
I think
fall festival season, and then that ends, and then I'm off for like, a little bit, and then January hits, and then it's like Sundance, and then it's like spring festival season, and then all the summer blockbusters come out, and then it's fall again.
I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form. I like reading your stuff quite a bit, even if I don't always agree with it. And sometimes you can be my canary in a coal mine for stuff that I'm pretty sure is pretentious junk.
Oh yeah, I logged a lot of things that I think people.
No names mentioned, because I don't want to get any hate messages. But there's definitely a few that you and I are definitely aligned with. Like, nope, that ain't it, son. That ain't it.
Wait, what's the pretentious junk? Is it the Brylat stuff? No.
I think we got it. Let's go to the plugs, right? Let's go to the plugs.
Oh, I like the version of the Icarus that's like there's all right, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, like the oxygen level or whatever. Like, there's a fifth person in your feed, like. Icarus, who's in my feed? Who's in my feed?
Who's in my?
If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and then hit the bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. And we'd humbly request that you watch the video to the end, because it helps us with the algorithm and helps more film fans to discover the show. We're also monetized. If you want to get your chat questions definitely read on stream, you can always send us a super chat, which will help us keep the show going. Every cent helps. If you're watching on Twitch, you can gift us a free sub on Amazon Prime with your Prime membership, but getting subs on Twitch is always appreciated, and it helps to follow us on there as well. We also have an audio feed, which is available wherever you download podcasts, if you prefer to listen to podcasts rather than watch the stream. That's updated usually the same day we stream, but watching on YouTube and Twitch is the best way to get the show first, live as it happens. If you want to support us with a monthly donation and get access to all of our after parties forever, which go patron only after we do them, you can become a patron at patreon.com/movie night extra. Link is in the description for that. It really helps us keep the show going, since we do have some expenses to make this happen. We also have a Discord community. Link is in the description for that. We sometimes watch movies we cover on there. We get into conversations about everything from film to TV shows to related podcasts. We even have a Discord channel for memes. It's really fun on there. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Threads. You connect with us on all of those. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, we recently made a TikTok at Movie Night Extra, where we're putting up short-form clips from the episodes. Okay, passing this to Conan so he can tell you about his music and this week's Protonic Reversal. Conan, who's on Protonic this week?
This week, Alan Johannes of Queens of Stone Age, 11, PG Harvey's band, so many great bands. He's a treasure. He hasn't been on for like 4 years or something, and good full episode. People will not be disappointed by that. That's in the Patreon feed right now, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal, $1 a month for advanced access to get that. Coming up Thursday, one of my favorite drummers in all of rock and roll, Dale Crover. Melvin's, Dale Crover Band, Red Cross, Conan, Neutron, The Secret Friends. I'm having him on. We can talk about his new record, Glossolalia, which is very good. I got to hear in advance of it. I was sworn to secrecy. I knew Tom Waits was on it, but I couldn't say anything. But yeah, Tom Waits is on it. Yay! So that's coming up on Thursday. Again, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com for Conan, Neutron, The Secret Friends music, merchandise, all that good stuff. You can buy records, listen to stuff for free on stuff that we don't see a cent from. We feel so inclined. West Coast tour, San Francisco, San Pedro, San Diego, San Tempe, Phoenix, coming up next month. Not going anywhere near you, Becky. I'm sorry. It's not. Don't take it personally, please.
And
then
sexuals in here, huh?
Detroit in October, and then, as I mentioned before, 2 shows with Dead Bob, John Wright of No Means No in Chicago and Minneapolis, respectively, coming up in November after that. I think that should do it. Becky, quotes, plugs, quotes. What are your quotes about your plugs that you will say right now?
Okay.
Is this IMDb the podcast?
I don't know why I said the word quotes. It's that my brain is malfunctioning.
I was like, I don't have any quotes. Plugs. I am not doing anything except for watching films.
You're doing plenty. You're like walking like 7 movies a day. You kidding me?
Yeah. And then I guess really the only thing that I would like to plug, if you're a person that watches movies, and you occasionally
on this show, anyone know anyone like that?
And you occasionally find yourself like running into like looking for or wanting to watch things that just aren't streamable. And you maybe want to throw money somewhere, instead of stealing things. I live in Seattle, and so I have a really incredible fortune of living in the same city as Scarecrow Video. Scarecrow is the largest video rental space in the United States of America. And they also do mail rentals. You can rent by mail, even if you're not like in the city of Seattle. Most things you can rent by mail. Occasionally, some of them, like ones that require like huge deposits because they're rare. Some of those, like they don't always like rent by mail. But Scarecrow is a nonprofit, and I think a lot of times we forget how important, protecting like physical media is. But like, I think talking about this movie or talking about like 28 Days Later, I think is like really good timing to bring those up, because even people who have owned digital copies, not just streamed it, but owned a digital copy, 28 Days Later specifically has disappeared from people's like digital queues before. There are films that have only ever been released on like VHS that you may never get to see or watch or engage with in like any other way. And so like protecting, physical media is super important to like me specifically. So next time you're thinking maybe I'll pirate that movie, I would encourage you to go to scarecrowvideo.org and see if you can rent it by mail instead. And then also, I guess not a plug, but like a shout out, but just feel super thankful for organizations like AGFA, the American Genre Film Archive, for, restoring and preserving a lot of genre film, because I've been watching some weird shit lately. And I wouldn't be able to do that without those 2 organizations. So
and I'll put
just shout outs.
I'll put the Scarecrow video link in the I'll remember to do that in the description for the.
It's how Netflix started. People forget they didn't just make like just good enough.
I was going to say, I hope we don't start
movies.
a streaming service after this, and then.
I don't think that'll happen. But like, man, I had Netflix DVDs up until like the very end.
In SF, there was a green scene too, which was like the art house equivalent, right? And I kept my green scene membership for a really, really long time, and. Yeah, it's weird. And now there's like fawning documentaries about Netflix where it's like, okay, why is this? I don't understand.
Because Netflix optioned it.
Yeah.
on Netflix.
You know what we really need right now? We need a hard-driven documentary about how great we are. People are forgetting. People are mad right now.
People are mad now, but wait till they see this documentary. Kristina, any plugs coming up?
Yeah, a lot of political DNC covers this week. I'm gonna be on with Dan on Thursday. I'm just streaming. And I mean, I'm dog sitting too, but I'll be able to stream. Also on Saturdays, on stream the weekends, we're gonna do fun stuff. Saturdays, we're gonna watch the soap opera Dark Shadows, Shadow Saturdays. I'm excited about that because
nice.
It's on Tubi, so I'm like, yeah. of course, it always starts with the episode where Billy Loomis discovers Barnabas. So, like, I have to tell people context of like the 200 episodes before that. So that's gonna be fun.
And that's all the time we have.
Yeah, and then Sunday Fun Days is where we watch Norman Lear shows, Gordon Ramsay shows, Craig Ferguson. My Twitch community loves when we watch All in the Family, the Jeffersons, slurs and all.
I mean, I guess Bam is not in your Twitch community because he was giving us shit about All in the Family when we had him on.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that.
Yeah, he was like, I get the point of it, but I don't like that it's a racist white guy. And I was like,
I mean, the funniest episode was when someone branded Archie's door with a swastika. He's like, I'm gonna put an American flag over it, and the audience was like, oh no, and I'm like, wow, that shit's relevant still today.
Yeah, could happen last week.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, any plugs?
Just look for that chapbook that's coming out. I know Ben is planning a book launch in September because that's when he's going to be getting copies from England. So look forward to that.
What's that called again?
It's 4 essays on Palestine.
Cool.
Becky, do you have some final thoughts? Closing it out here.
No.
It's a first for the show. Wow. Okay.
I usually have a lot of like final thoughts. I'm like, and this one thing. No, it is an incredible piece of cinema and I love it so much. And I'm so glad that it exists. And I'm glad that there's an incredible looking 35mm print of it. That's still able to. It ruled. Like it looked great too. I was floored because for a film that like wasn't very well received and a film that was made in 2007, it's incredibly surprising like how good of condition that print is in. So
it's fascinating to have 28 days later and then this, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you really can't restore 28 days.
Yeah, there's gonna be no 4K restoration of 28 days.
That's why we're gonna get 28 years later to hopefully maybe garner support to restore it digitally in a better form.
What if you filmed that on like a PXL 2000 or whatever you filmed the original one on? Would that be amazing?
They should. The new movie should also be filmed in like 12p, just like 28 days later was.
Looks like a snuff film too.
It's 12p.
Yeah. A Motorola Razor. They find a working one? Last working one.
We found the last working one.
I was going to say filmed on an iPod Nano, but the Nano didn't exist yet.
I said it like one person in the chat acknowledged it, but the Trio, which was the Palm Pilot, when it turned to a phone, they had a camera extension that you could put on it. That's how early on this was in before the camera phone thing, and it looked exactly like how you think it looked. But it was just to say that it took a picture.
Tangerine was filmed on a phone, on an iPhone. Remember
that's
that?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say. The upgrade version of the 28 Days Later movie is that they film it on an iPhone 5, like Tangerine. Like they're like, we're really gonna boost up the quality now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm excited for that. I think a lot of times when they do these what is it? What do they call that? Like requels, right? Yeah. When they do it's
I don't think it's proper. I don't think it's properly a requel, but like
I feel like it's a makeup for 28 weeks later,
which there should be a makeup for. But yeah, I think that it's 28 years later.
You probably wait for that judgment until you see it.
Yeah.
Until it comes, until they write it.
And everyone's like, where does Cillian Murphy play a part in this? And I'm like, there's two endings to 28 days later. He either dies or survives, and the one that made it was that he survives. So clearly he might actually die in this one.
They should have done that like a choose your own adventure thing where you can pick if you want him to live or die.
Was it Bandersnatch? The Black Mirror choose your own adventure?
Yeah.
Thank you. Bandersnatch, everybody.
I was like, what a time. I forgot about that until you like.
What a fun word to say that has been completely forgotten by almost everyone, almost including me.
It's surprising because you think
I can't believe you remembered it.
Some rapper would make Bandersnatch like an album title or something, and then it would have a whole different life.
Yeah,
true.
It's true.
It should be my rap name.
Kanye still has time.
DJ Bandersnatch.
Or Yeah, I was gonna say MC Bandersnatch. Like,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you want to be the MC.
yeah. Nobody wants to DJ these days. Nobody wants to work anymore, you know.
Nobody wants to DJ anymore. Not true, by the way. Plenty of people want to do that.
Quite literally the opposite of the truth.
Everybody wants to DJ, but like
there's a great band called We Should Have Been DJs, which I thought that's good. That's solid.
But everybody wants to DJ. They want to like bring their laptop and be like, watch this with like the turntables. Just press the button. Be like,
yeah.
Come on, man. Kristina, though, final thoughts, and let's see if you can get through this without thirst posting about Cillian Murphy.
She's done so great. Why are you doubting her?
Yeah, I did this for you guys. Anyway,
amazed by your restraint.
Yeah, well, because this is not like a thirsty Cillian Murphy movie. It's a doomer downer movie. It just kills the mood. Like why would I want to be like? That's why you guys are like, we're so excited for you. We're doing Sunshine. I'm like, Sunshine, of all the films, there's Red Eye to thirst after. There is The Liquid Season to thirst after. There are so many other movies of his for me to thirst after. You pick the one where it's impossible to really thirst after.
It didn't stop like a third of Letterboxd, just so you know.
I know. What the fuck is wrong with them? This is the least thirsty Cillian Murphy movie ever.
I ask that question every week. I do the bit. Every week I'm like, what's wrong with these people? Have they ever had sex before?
And that's my final thought.
Probably not some of them. I don't want to ever like look at like one of those like really serious like Holocaust films. Like I don't want to see what people have like Letterboxd posts about it. There's some
Nazis are on Letterboxd.
Schindler, so hot right now.
Yo, he really got them out of there, didn't he? I wish I was on that. I wish I was on that list.
I'd hide in that attic.
Andy, final thought.
Yeah, now that I've dug you this ditch, Andy. Here.
Yeah, thank you. I had two things. One of the interesting things about this movie that if you watch the bonus content of the DVD, they actually have all the actors talking about the characters' backstories. And it's almost like a Liefeld comic in the 90s where like you'd read an interview of Liefeld and he'd like tell you how cool this comic is. And none of that stuff was actually in the comic. But maybe the subtext of it is. And that's kind of what happened here. So like Benedict Wong's character, for example, created a computer virus that wiped out 2/3 of Earth's computers. And so like they trained him
as a child, as a teenager. Child.
Yeah. And then they trained him up and put him on this mission so he wouldn't be on Earth to screw things up anymore.
Wow.
Yeah,
that beats the hell out of who is it? Zero Cool in Hackers. That beats the hell out of his brag. Jeez. Yeah, he is a kid.
Zero Cool.
I like Earth Day to the point. I like the idea of Earth Day to the point where like you can take someone that's fucked up that much, be like, but shoot him into space. Let's see what happens.
Put him on the mission, kid. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you get a chance, they actually have all of it on YouTube. There's like it's a 45-minute thing where they talk about like how they made the film.
It's a documentary. What is this?
It's like really
the behind the scenes stuff.
Remember when they used to do
that?
We were just talking about that. Yeah.
And it's absolutely great to watch because you get to see them actually them talking about going up into the plane and getting 0G, so they know what that was like. And yeah, no, it's a freaking great 45 minutes.
I hate when my phone gets 0G. You know,
but absolutely.
Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss
on YouTube. And like I said, it's
not as bad as me saying "Run DNC" to name Kristina's rap name in the fucking group.
Okay, Run DNC. That was funny though.
I think someone named themselves Run DNC.
Yeah, now it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like a Bernie thing, or was it a Hillary thing? Whatever.
I called you Run DNC, and I said you'll be good for a night. You're not Run DNC.
But if you actually do watch those DVD extra footages, it does bring back certain. It does make some of the characters a little more tragic.
I bet
that are kind of underdeveloped, like the guy who was first officer. His backstory is interesting, and the story about the set designer hiding love letters throughout his little, his bedroom on the set.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because apparently he was married, and he found one of them.
Officer guy, he's just like his day job.
A whole movie we could make just about this behind the scenes. Jesus.
Yeah, no, like I said, find this, watch this. Don't be disappointed.
Turn this off. Watch that, and then come back and give us your full report.
The other thing I want to
Well, I was gonna say the first officer guy. He's just like a comms officer in his that's like his day job.
Yeah, and he actually has like this whole arc why he's like the way he is, and like you don't see it on camera. It's really does make it is like a Liefeld comic in that way.
Exactly. You don't see the feet there either.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing too is this is the second movie that Michelle Yeoh and Hiroyuki Sanda did together. The first one was called Royal Warriors, which was a sequel to Yes, Madam, which was a big hit in Hong Kong.
Really? Oh, wow. There's a sequel to that?
Yeah. I have not seen this, but mostly because I can't find Yes, Madam anywhere. And I don't think I've seen that one since I was like the 90s. So, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say I saw it a long time ago. Couldn't tell you a thing that happened.
Same.
You know where you could watch that movie?
Oh, yeah, the place you were talking about. Scarecrowvideo.org, right? Our new sponsor,
out.
we hope.
They sure do have it.
There you go.
Yes, Madam,
Oh,
and
they
Royal
have it.
Warriors?
They have it on VHS and on Blu-ray and on DVD.
Wow.
Nice.
All right.
Do
So
they
you
have
can choose like
full
either
contact?
3.
This can be this podcast, Movies Unlimited.
Yeah.
I was going off about that on Movies That Made Me.
And I will I'll put it in the description.
Yeah,
they have apparently they have a Twitter on Twitter now, X, the everything app. apparently you know, getting movies is one of those things.
28 Thirst Traps Later is pretty good, Stevie. That's good.
Yeah.
Solid work.
A movie that'll totally make you horny in space. Conan, final thought.
What a setup. Yeah. I kind of forget, I mentioned earlier, I kind of forget how interesting Boyle is as a filmmaker. I think that the first 2/3 of it is about as bleak as I remember, which is very bleak, and that being in space usually kind of sucks. But from a world building perspective, it outpaces most of the space movies in the last 20 years, which is very interesting and kind of surprising. I think the third act, does turn into a slasher movie in space, but it worked way better for me as on a second time than it did the first time. I like it. I like when Garland works with Boyle, and I'm excited to see what the results are with 28 years later. I think this is a good, underrated film that deserves a spirited discussion, of which I think this mostly was.
I like the idea that it's too bleak. You know what we should do? Make it a slasher movie for the last third.
Exactly. Let's brighten up.
Lighten things up a little bit.
Exactly. What if we put a killer in space? Exactly.
What if we put a Cillian in space?
We made this.
Put a Cillian on it. Cillian in space, and there's a killer. Greenlit.
I'm proud of us. We made it.
Huge
we
bomb.
made it under the 2-hour deadline. So,
Get it? Huge bomb? Nobody?
Yeah,
Somebody bomb related? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I was like,
bomb.
we're about to run over.
It just made $5 billion. That's sun money right there. All right. Well, I'm proud of us. We did it. We hit our target. We made it. We dropped that bomb on the sun.
We saved Earth.
Yeah.
You're welcome, everyone.
And we never get the fucking credit for it.